Our name is Ghosts Want You Dead. As the days grow shorter and colder, and the darkness consumes increasing quantities of time, we must prepare to confront the dangers that lurk in the night, waiting to destroy us. Hello, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Rebecca.
Rebecca, I was wondering if you may have newfound empathy for our show's beloved actors often flubbing their lines, given your recent triumphant return to the stage.
Oh, goodness, yes. Memorizing lines is super hard, and making your mouth work is also super hard. My previous acting experience ended with the 1997 production of the Michael W. Smith musical Living on the Edge, which
That's
was
a Jesus thing.
yes, it was a youth ministry tool, and we did tour the tri-state area, going around singing. It was like a choral. I was in the chorus, and then I had another little smaller part.
And what was your other little smaller part?
Oh, I honestly don't remember. I think it was just a few lines.
Wise Man number 2.
No, this was like a edgy high school, like we're teens and we're in high school.
Was it like a Hell House thing?
No, not quite, but I mean, it definitely had qualities of it. It was, I don't know, it was like religious glee or something, but it was terrible.
Well, that sounds fun.
That was many years ago.
In the role you are currently performing, what I wanted to get at was how you look like sexy Jesus with your fake beard.
Yes.
See Instagram for evidence.
Yes. So, um, I am doing this play as a favor to a friend and also to just kind of try new things. Doing a podcast, hadn't done that before. Now I'm doing a little bit of acting, and I have found that I think I actually prefer the production roles that I have assisted with, like with costuming and set design and things like that. I'm much more into, as well as doing the makeups. I gave your sister and myself beards because we're some dudes. And it turns out I am actually really hot in a scuzzy way as a man, which I'm kind of into. And I may have stumbled upon a drag persona that I didn't know was in me. But I have been flubbing lines. We had our first performance, and it went pretty well. We all recovered really well.
Well, I'm hoping you're not in perfect running order by the time I come to see the show, and I hope to sneakily record on my phone.
Yeah, I could just torch it just so we can
Burn it all down.
have some good podcast material. Be like, sorry.
See, and is it very dramatic?
It's a little comedic, but there are some very dramatic moments.
Well, you know what is very dramatic.
What?
Dark Shadows, episode 21.
It is. You are correct.
But before we get into that, just to review, what has happened in the first 20 episodes?
Well, I do know that it has spanned 3 days. I made a note of that today, because in the 21st episode, she's all like, "It's a new day," and da 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 da, and I'm like, "And it literally is the 3rd day."
Well, in
But
those 3 days,
in those 3 days, the things that have transpired.
we have met the Collins Stoddard family who live in a house called Collinwood in a town called Collinsport in Maine, and there's matriarch Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, who is a creepy old recluse whom I love.
I aspire to be like her one day. She's great.
And she has an evil gay brother, Roger, who has a mentally ill young son named David, who is a little monster. And then Liz has a daughter, Carolyn Stoddard, who has a crush on every boy,
Including
especially her uncle. Victoria Winters has come to town ostensibly to work as a governess for David, the little shit child. But really,
terrible phrase.
really, she is there to discover her mysterious parentage and reminds us practically every other scene that she grew up in a foundling home. We've also met
Joe.
Burke Devlin, who showed up in town the same time as Victoria. And we have learned over the course of 20 episodes that 10 years ago he went to prison for manslaughter. And Roger used to be his best friend, but then testified against him at this manslaughter trial and got him sent to jail. At which point, Burke Devlin swore revenge upon the family, then went to prison for 5 years. Then he got out of prison and spent the intervening 5 years getting rich and has now come back to town and has yet to reveal his motives for doing so. Also, you started to talk about Joe. Joe is a dreamy fish man. He catches the fish on the boats.
He is pretty dreamy.
He
I was gonna
is.
save this for later, but he has a little hat in one of the latter episodes we watched tonight, and I was just very excited by his little fishing man hat.
I guess I do like his hat. And he's real cute, and he is the long suffering boyfriend of Carolyn. The joke is that he proposes all the time and she always shoots him down, but they continue to date because I guess it's slim pickings in Collinwood and the options are Joe or your uncle. So it's pretty dreary for Carolyn until Burke Devlin shows up, and now she also has it bad for him.
Boy, does she.
She's mad with him at the moment, but I think she'll get over it.
Oh, I think she can't stay mad at the new eligible bachelor very long.
Then also, David, who is a little shit, has tried to kill his father by taking a valve out of his car's brakes so he will crash and die. And then he also is sort of in the middle of a plot to frame Victoria Winters for it. But everyone thinks Burke Devlin did it, which, to be fair, he was seen sneaking around in the garage right before it happened, so it is a logical conclusion to jump to.
Yeah, I did think it was him, and then we saw a little
Oh,
David of the damn corn planting evidence and things,
yeah,
hiding things
they
and all of
tell us
that.
pretty much from the jump that it was David, so that's where we're at. That's what's going on up until now.
You're all caught up.
We forgot to talk about Sam and Maggie. Sam is a awful old drunk and is somehow involved in what happened with Burke and Roger 10 years ago, but I don't think they've come out and said exactly what happened yet.
No, they haven't. I will like to note that now that Maggie does not have the wig, I officially, A, do like her, and B, maybe kind of like her. Like, she's very pretty, and I think that just horrible, horrible wig, like, was too distracting for me. So, go Maggie, go.
I thought the wig was fun, but I also like her better with her natural hair.
Yeah, no, she's super dreamy
But
with her long brown ponytail. I think she might be the prettiest gal in Sport. I don't know why they forced her to wear that terrible thing.
maybe it was her idea. Maybe she was
Maybe.
like, wouldn't it be fun if I had ugly short hair?
I
And
suppose.
then she realized after a couple of weeks, oh no, it's not so fun. It's hot to have this wig on with the lights,
That
and
may what?
maybe I just won't. Okay, so now I think we're all caught up.
Yes.
So, episode 21, Victoria Winters reminds us that it is still creepy at Collinwood. Also, the sea is creepy, and the previous night was creepy, and also Roger almost died.
Yes.
So we enter in the kitchen where Carolyn and Vicky look exhausted and are waiting for coffee to brew and making sleepy chit chat.
Yes, Carolyn asks if, if she's thinking about the meaning of life as she's staring at the percolator, and I enjoyed that Vicky was like, "No, I'm thinking about death. Anyway, what do you want for breakfast? Toast or cereal?" Like, which kind of I feel like mirrors the vibe of our lives currently. Everything's horrible, but let's have a snack. I don't know.
Indeed, they are sleepy and grumpy and sneezy and bashful
Yes.
and all that. And they're talking about the accident. Carolyn doesn't believe that it wasn't an accident. Vicky gets kind of dramatic about it and is explaining, well, here's what happened to the brakes. Carolyn, you just don't want to believe it because you have a boner for Burke and he's the likely suspect. But I caught him in the garage with the wrench, and that finally convinces Carolyn to get on board.
At least to a certain extent. I think she's still a little, wavering in that doubt. I mean, the whole time she seems not fully convinced, but it at least concerns her. Anyway, they in that conversation, they were talking about cars as though they're like, "Well, we're little ladies, we don't know about cars, but some man told me." And then I guess finally
Well,
through that conversation, she does give in, as you said.
Vicky goes on to explain about how the night before she had gone to the Collinsport Inn with Roger and confronted Burke about it, and he denied everything and said he had just found the wrench on the car seat,
Yeah.
but Roger didn't believe him. But Vicky tells Carolyn that she, Vicky, did believe that Burke didn't really do it.
Yeah, and they both want to believe that it wasn't Burke in the garage with the wrench and the candlesticks and everything.
Hmm. At the hotel, there's a knock on Burt Devlin's door, and he opens it to find Malloy. The air is thick with sexual tension as they snipe at each other while Burke finishes his breakfast.
Also, and maybe I'm sitting here like eyeing Maggie, and I'm also sitting here realizing that Burke might actually be attractive now, so I may just be lonely. But
Oh, you have joined the legion of ladies that
yes,
have a boner for Burke
I
Devlin.
think just him sitting there in his little dressing robe, I was like, "Oh, okay then, Mr. Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin." How many
He
times you need me to say it?
he has his moments, I guess, but I only have eyes for Joe
Well,
until somebody else shows up later.
okay.
I mean, I also wouldn't kick Roger out of bed, but I would also check his pockets before he left.
I was
But
gonna say, but also I would,
Jody.
because although he's handsome, he's real irritating. I Roger rubs me the wrong way.
He could rub me the wrong way for a while. Uh, so Malloy declines Burke's offer of coffee, and they also talk about the accident. Fucking everybody talks about the accident ad nauseum over these next few
I
episodes.
will say
Kind
that
of
several
tedious.
of these scenes where they're just back and forth and back and forth talking about the same subject is a little exhausting, but it's still a good time.
Indeed.
Burke essentially just tells him to fuck off because,
Well, he gives the same explanation he's already given everybody
yeah,
else, and that also that he's already had this conversation with Roger. Malloy accuses Burke of being out for revenge, and he doesn't believe that he's willing to just let the past go. He reminds Burke about the threats to take everything the Collinses own that he made back when he was convicted. Burke again denies that that is still his motive. Malloy then reveals he knows about the detective Strake that Burke had hired to snoop around town.
Burke tried to deny that at first, and then Malloy called his bluff.
Then back at Collinwood, Liz finds Carolyn in the kitchen looking for Vicky to hand her a letter that has arrived from the Foundling home. Carolyn tells Liz about Vicky believing Burke's denial of responsibility for the accident, but Liz is not interested. Carolyn says that she's upset because if Burke really did cause the accident, that means it's her fault since she's the one who tricked him into coming to the house. Vicky tells her a Foundling home sob story that I wasn't sure exactly what Carolyn was supposed to take away.
I didn't fully understand the correlation she was making, but she was essentially like going on about how she was horribly bullied and had terrible pranks about her having parents and they were coming. And then she's like, so don't believe in what I'm saying about like
Don't ever believe anybody about anything.
yeah, don't believe anyone about anything, which honestly, Vicky, fair. Like, okay, girl, I feel that. A call comes in and Liz answers and says it was the constable.
I have a question.
Yes.
And you may not know the answer to this.
I may
We might have to Google it. But what is the difference between a constable and a sheriff? Because they call this man constable like 80% of the time, but the rest of the time they call him sheriff. And then later, when we're dealing with different police after this incident, it's always the sheriff. So I only understand British police rankings from all of my bitch detective programs. I don't really know about American police ranks. What does constable mean?
I'm looking it up. I have a feeling that they're probably just using them interchangeably, but
Well,
anyway,
I also looked it up, and what it looks like to me is basically the difference between regular police and sheriffs, in that sheriffs work for the county, whereas constables, like police, are assigned to a specific district or precinct.
right.
Yeah, and who knows if terminology might have been different in the
Sure.
60s, but I just wondered about that.
Yeah, I was unsure too. I thought about it as well.
Well, anyway, Liz answers the call from the constable sheriff, arranging his visit to the house later, and then Liz and Carolyn continue to go back and forth about Burke and
She's
whether he did
pleading
it
his
or not.
innocence. Carolyn just keeps being like, but it couldn't have been. It couldn't have been Burke.
And then the phone rings again. Liz answers again. This time it's a reporter. She pretends to not be interested in involving the police, saying, "Oh no, it was just an accident."
Right, because she's trying to keep all the press out of it, as has been noted before. Liz tells Carolyn that she should go ahead and reconsider getting out of town for her safety and also not wanting to deal with the onslaught of reporters and bullying and things like that, and recounts how difficult it was for Carolyn growing up to have a crazy shut-in witch mom.
Indeed. And then Vicky comes in and interrupts and hands Liz the letter she received, saying with some sense of importance that she really ought to read it. The letter is from Orphan Marm, who is in fact called Ms. Hopewell, which I will forget, it- although I don't know if she ever comes up again, but I will forget, and she will remain Orphan Marm. Anyway, it's the letter that she had dictated previously about the detective sniffing around. And Carolyn is excited, like, ooh, a detective.
Is he single?
They speculate about who may have hired the detective, and Vicky pushes Liz a little bit about her suspicions that Liz might know more than she's letting on about Vicky's past.
Liz just shuts that down. and ushers people away like usual.
Now, back in Burke's room at the end, he and Malloy are also talking about the detective Strake, and Burke tries to say that he hired Strake because he's considering investing in the area and that there's a cannery for sale in nearby Logansport. So he wanted to find out about the area generally. And then when Malloy is like, well, why were they sniffing around about the Collinses? And he's like, well, because they're the competition. They also own a cannery in the area.
Malloy does not believe this and is very incredulous about the whole thing and leaves.
What
And
he accuses Burke of being a smooth talker,
oh
which
yeah.
he's not all that smooth.
No.
His efforts to manipulate are very obvious.
Yes, he's rather transparent.
And after he shoos Mr. Malloy out, Burke makes a call and invites a mysterious Mr. Bronson to meet him in Bangor to move on something. We don't
Dun dun
yet know what.
dun, which was pretty much the actual score.
And also, end of that episode.
Yes.
Moving on to episode 22, Vicky reminds us that it's still creepy down at Collinwood. Also, her past, did you know, it's mysterious.
And definitely she believes it is now more than ever connected to the mysterious house and family and mysteriousness of Collinswood.
Indeed. And at the Evans house, Maggie answers the door to let Burke in, and I was confused about what's going on here because Maggie is wearing what could be a nightgown or could just be an ugly dress. And she has a lot of eye makeup on, but then she acts like
She's
he's
just got
woken her up.
yes.
Like, it's too early. What are you doing here? Even though I already have on 5 pounds of mascara and am maybe wearing an actual dress, but I guess this could have been my nightgown. So
It might be some kind of dressing coat, like morning coat or something,
I'm
but it
I,
did look weird.
I wasn't sure what was going on.
I did note an extreme amount of sexual tension between Maggie and Burke, which I had not seen before.
I didn't notice that.
Well, maybe that's just my own imagination working things out for myself.
I guess, but Burke is looking for Sam, who is not home, so Maggie starts to gossip about the accident because Maggie is the town busybody, although also has personal reasons to be interested on account of her horrible dad. Burke reveals to Maggie that, oh, the accident wasn't an accident, and she drops her coffee cup on the ground.
At least she didn't crush it in her hand like her father and old Uncle Roger.
Well, Burke explains about the brakes having been tampered with, and he teases Maggie about being suspicious. She asks him how long he plans to be in town and starts to get protective about Sam. She knows there's something going on between Sam and Roger in relation to whatever happened with Burke, but
Yeah.
that's about as much as she knows. So, speaking of Sam, he wanders into the inn restaurant where Roger is there talking on the phone about the constable coming. Horrible old Sam invites himself to join Roger pretentiously at his table and tells the woman working the counter like to be a good little girl and bring his donuts over or something, and it's gross in the 60s.
Yeah.
He asks Roger about having seen Burke. Roger explains what had happened the previous night and brings up that he and Sam are the only two people who know what really happened 10 years ago.
Yes. And Roger says that he accused Burke and that Burke laughed it off. And he tells Sam about the wrench and he asks if it's true or if he'd lie. And Sam says, "Yeah, dude, you would lie," insinuating that past of self-protecting deception on Roger's part and insinuating that Roger has lied about some shit in the past, which is clear at this point.
Yes, like, I think it's pretty evident what has happened, but no one has come right out and said it yet.
Yes. Although we don't know who was murdered it yet.
I don't think we ever know who's
Just some
just
rando.
some guy. Yeah, like,
Some poor dude.
it
Well, that's unfortunate. Back at Sam and Maggie's, Burke and Maggie are having even sexier chemistry, to me, anyway. And they're looking at a portrait of her dead mother that Sam had done. And he is commenting that she was a beautiful woman. And they go back and forth, and Maggie keeps prying a little bit.
just basically trying to make sure nobody's trying to make trouble for her dad,
Yeah.
and it's a little tense. Burke says something about not being able to imagine anything that would make him hate Sam, at which point I said aloud to the TV, "Oh, just give him a minute. He's pretty fucking annoying."
You did. I was there. Anyways, Sam does in fact come in and is eyeing Burke, who says, "We were just talking about you." And Sam gets upset and angry with Maggie
And
that she talked to,
cagey and weird.
yeah, is all acting erratic and yelling at her and saying, "You don't talk to Burke about our personal business." And like, if somebody comes asking questions, you don't just give him answers, you know.
He accuses Burke of coming to pry, which Burke denies. And Burke reveals that he wants to hire Sam to paint his portrait. And Sam, I think, declines immediately, but then is surprised when he offers the sum of $1,000, which is the equivalent of $10,000 today for a portrait. Rebecca, you're an artiste. Is that a reasonable amount or way overpayment for a portrait?
Mm. It depends because uh the art world is a scam. So just your regular local artist, a 10,000 for a portrait seems a little extreme, definitely an overpayment. But if you were paying somebody that was
So this would seem
Prince,
like an effort to bribe someone.
I would think so, yes. Like, now that being said, there are people that probably get paid that kind of money to do a portrait, but it's people who are
Not a washed up
not a washed
alcoholic
up
that
drunk.
paints motel landscapes.
Sure, exactly. That's what I was saying. No one's paying me $10,000 to do their portrait.
Sam still declines, but Maggie accepts on his behalf, like, shut up, Dad, we need the money. And
Yeah.
he reluctantly goes along with it.
And then Burke is like, "And I want the portrait to be like a Collins portrait. I want it to
Exactly the same size, and it should fit in with those ones.
because I'm gonna take that house and put myself up as a Collins is." Like, he didn't say that, but that was the vibe.
Yeah, and at Collinwood, Carolyn is answering a phone call from Joe. Joe asks after Roger, and they have vague plans later.
She talks dreamily about her hero, Uncle Roger, and how he's invincible to her boyfriend, which
Yes, and Roger arrives back, and Carolyn flirts with him.
very creepily.
Then the phone rings again. Roger answers, and it's the constable and or sheriff's office calling to inform him that the constable and or sheriff is on his way. He tells Carolyn this, and she gets upset about it and tries to defend Burke. She repeats that she doesn't want Burke to have caused the accident because that makes it her fault, and they argue, and he calls her kitten 1,000 times.
Yeah, he's kitten, kitten, kitten. You ought to know me better than that. And the incest vibes were actually a little unsettling and not funny at that point. I was like, ew. He is also talking down to her quite a bit and is just, tells her she's a dumb baby lady and needs to mind her own and go on her little dates with her boyfriends and let a man deal with a man's world kind of vibe.
And during this conversation, he takes off his sling for his sprained arm and gives her the sling.
Yes.
And she hands it back before she leaves the room. And they've said something about like he just wants justice during the conversation. And
Justice.
you can see uh, how David is his father's son because once he's alone in the room, Roger squeezes his sling real tight and intones justice. So we can see where David gets it from.
Before she leaves, they share a really creepy kiss on the cheek, but it was still creepy.
I don't know that it was that creepy. It was
I don't
just
know.
on the cheek.
Well, with all those vibes,
Yeah.
it's unsettling.
Back at the Evans, Maggie is getting ready to leave for work, and Burke offers her a ride.
Sam is sketching Burke to prepare for said $1,000 portrait.
And he asks just how are they going to finish this portrait so quickly since Burke is only going to be in town for a couple of days, and Burke informs him that his plans have changed.
Sam, is sort of calling him out on that and like, I thought you were leaving. Like, Sam still is very suspicious and not really very compliant with this, although he is agreeing to do it for Maggie's sake. Episode 23, Victoria Winters reminds us that Collinwood is spooky and that she's gonna try to teach little David of the Damned Corn some schooling. And Roger is trotting up the stairs to go pester Vicky about Burke some more.
But then Constable Dorky Glasses arrives.
Yes, with his big weird hat too. He looked like a Mountie.
Yeah, this guy is interesting looking.
Then Liz comes in to try to talk to Roger about Vicky's letter and how it could cause some problems for her. And he's like, I don't give a damn about your problems. I have big problems. I'm a man. I'm a man in a man's world. Like,
Constable Glasses is on the phone while
Yeah.
this is going on, and they have their little sidebar.
Yes. And Constable Glasses kind of gives the vibe that he knows that Roger's just trying to be like, Burke did it and go get him because he also knows about what happened 10 years ago and was there at the trial. I enjoy some of the intrigue of just a lot of the townspeople being like, Roger's a fucking dick, and we know Roger's a fucking dick. Like, we know you're a two-faced two-facer, sir. We know.
Even his own dear sister was reluctant to try and prevent his murder. Roger explains to the constable about the brakes having been tampered with, and as Rebecca said, he's one step ahead of Roger and already knows he's trying to accuse Burke. I loved this bit where Roger says, I can't think of anyone else who might want to harm me. And then we cut immediately to David making a creepy face upstairs.
Yes, that was a pretty good trick there.
And
David and Vicky are doing some schooling, and David asks Vicky if she's been punished for trying to kill somebody before.
well, he eases into it.
Well, yeah,
Asked
he
her
does.
first, were you ever punished as a child? And
Like, sure.
and then he goes on to say, well, what was the worst thing you ever did? And she says, well, one time I got into a fight with a girl and busted her lip or something. And he goes on to ask, well, did you ever try to kill somebody? And Vicky refuses to take this seriously, as has become her pattern. And she's just like, no. Anyway, what's the capital of Maine or whatever? And Vicky keeps dismissing it. He goes on to ask, well, what would happen if you had tried to kill somebody? Would they put you in jail? And she gets fed up and is like, yes, they'd put me in jail and lock me up and throw away the key. And Leave me to rot alone in the darkness forever. And then dismisses him further and is like, satisfied? Okay, now let's talk about main history some more. But David goes on to say that he wishes he knew why Roger never liked him. And probably because he's horrible, but Roger is also horrible.
Yeah, they ought to stick together, the horribles.
Back downstairs, Roger is exhaustively giving the details we've heard 30 times at this point to the constable about what happened, and Constable Glasses scolds Roger for not having called the police last night instead of waiting 12 hours.
Yes.
He also asks to speak to Vicky, so Liz is going to go upstairs and summon her. So upstairs, David is still distracted from his lessons. He goes on to ask Vicky if she thinks that Roger went to the police. So Liz comes in and asks Vicky to go downstairs to talk to the constable, and David freaks out that the police are there. The music gets extra spooky as David sneaks behind them down the stairs to eavesdrop.
Yes. And that is the end of that episode. No.
No, it is not. I can see how you would get confused because this stretch of episodes is people having the same conversation several times. So
Yes, it is.
downstairs, Vicky is telling her story again to the constable about having run into Burke in the garage. The questioning is tedious and just repeats a bunch of stuff we already know.
Liz flubs her lines in a very cute way. It was very like beep, 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 beep. And I enjoyed that.
The constable brings up the events of 10 years ago, and Roger is pissed when the constable suggests that Burke may not be responsible.
Yeah.
Then David makes crazy big eyes at the camera upon hearing that they are considering suspects other than Burke.
Yeah, he flares his little demon possessed nostrils and widens his eyes. He looks crazy.
And Roger is further pissed that Constable Glasses wants to actually investigate the incident instead of just going to arrest Burke like he asked him to. They go out to get the wrench from the garage, and as Roger and Vicky and the cops go out to the garage to do that, Liz does the mom with eyes in the back of her head thing again and walks through without looking at him and addresses David hiding in the corner behind a chair to be like, go upstairs and do your homework. But
David,
is not too mad at him. Like, she's basically like, well, I can understand why you were curious. So she tries to send him upstairs before she goes to engage in her favorite pastime of dramatically gazing out a window. David does not obey her and hangs around and asks why the constable doesn't think Burke is the Temperer. He asks what the constable meant about the.
corroborative evidence.
Yeah. She explains about they could find fingerprints on the wrench, and David freaks out.
Yeah, he's like, oh shit.
They bring in the wrench, and David is staring it down and clearly trying to touch it to give an explanation of why his fingerprints are on it. But Vicky catches him and stops him the first time.
And then he almost immediately after knocks it over and picks it up because he's an evil little genius sociopath. And
Is real apologetic and pretends he knocked it over accidentally and just picked it up because he didn't know any better. The music gets real intense and then end credits.
yep.
Okay. Episode 24. No, let's just do it in
Okay.
unison.
Episode 24.
That was
Vicky
fun.
tells us that everything is spooky all the time at Collinswood with the
And
Collinses in the Collin house. And
also, attempted murder is afoot.
it is.
Constable Glasses comes to the counter in the restaurant at the inn,
He's looking for Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin.
and Maggie says she doesn't know where he is, and has he tried his hotel room? Glasses says he wasn't there, and then Maggie gets nosy about why he might be looking for Burke, and Constable Glasses is evasive. Over on the payphone, Carolyn is finishing up a conversation with Joe, and then she goes to the counter. Maggie and Carolyn joke about all of the shopping that Carolyn has dragged in, and Maggie asks if she's meeting Burke because the constable is looking for him. But
She orders double cheeseburger or double of everything, like 2 cheeseburgers, 2 whatever, and Maggie makes a pregnancy joke where she asks if she's eating for 2, and, Carolyn was not really having that, like, "Shut up. Don't call me a slut, slut." But anyway, she asks Carolyn about Burke, and Carolyn really seems just done with having that conversation, and she's just leave it. She doesn't wanna talk about it. She seems really sad.
Maggie tells Carolyn, I forget how it comes up, about how Sam is going to be doing this portrait of Burke.
Yes.
And Maggie is fishing for information about why Sam is being so weird about the whole Burke and Roger thing.
And
But
then
Carolyn doesn't tell her anything.
yeah,
Joe eventually arrives,
in his handsome little fisherman hat.
and he's clearly annoyed when Carolyn brings up Burke, who by now has wandered downstairs, and he runs into Constable Glasses in the lobby. Glasses wants to talk privately, and Burke is cordial and invites him to lunch, but Glasses is like, no, let's go up to your room. And so he orders his lunch to go. Back in the restaurant, Joe is asking about the accident, but Carolyn is tired of talking about it. Then Joe is relieved that she doesn't want to talk about Burke. He explains that he has been boat shopping, and for about 10 seconds, they have a nice little conversation about how he's maybe found a partner to start his fishing business with, and she's excited for him. But again, that only lasts for about 10 seconds, and they start fighting about how she won't marry him again. And she gets pissy about feeling pressured into it. And this is happening as Burke is passing through to order his lunch, and he stops to say hi to Joe and Carolyn. And Joe is a bad sport about it. And he's like, you can't sit with us.
He's just done with all of that, and I will say that Joe seemed happy that Carolyn didn't wanna talk about Burke and wanted to talk about his little boat. But yeah, he's pretty much like, "Get out of here," and even Carolyn is a little more standoffish and cold with him. Asks how long they will be there, and he seemed to be formulating some kind of plan and being nefarious, to some degree.
It seemed like he was teasing Joe at first, like,
Yeah.
oh, well, when are you leaving, Joe? What about you, Carolyn?
Yeah.
Like he's trying to get her alone.
Which not alone, and he is trying to make his plans and his schemes, but
Indeed. But as Burke has walked away, Joe mutters that, one of these days I'm going to punch him right in the mouth.
yeah, he's just done with it. He's got his little fisherman hat. He's gonna buy a boat with some shady character named Jerry.
Up in Burke's room, he and Glasses are getting situated, and Burke insists again that he had nothing to do with the accident. And I'm getting pretty bored with this whole thing.
Yes, I would like this part to speed up a little bit. Carter stumbles over his lines a little bit. Glasses. That's Constable Carter.
I'm just going to call him Glasses.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sure if he doesn't hang around a lot, then
I don't think he does. That's again like next time the cops are
right.
around, it's sheriff somebody and it's a different dude.
But Glasses does quote threats from 10 years ago that Burke says while he was, being arrested and like, I'm gonna take you all for all you're worth. And, Burke says that while he still might have a grudge, he doesn't want revenge in that way and wouldn't kill him.
Yeah.
They go back and forth about this for a while, and he recounts picking up the wrench, but then he left. And Burke finishes his story with that he went to the Blue Whale to wait for Roger and recounts the whole story 3 times in 3 different ways.
And back in the diner, Joe and Carolyn are arguing about Burke a little bit more, and Maggie noses in to say, well, are you talking about Burke? Well, he just called down and asked Carolyn to come upstairs to his room.
Yeah,
I think she explains, like, oh, but the constable's there. They're not fucking. It's okay.
right. But Joe at first, of course, was like, "What?" But then Carolyn does go up, and Burke is trying to use Carolyn as evidence that he's not a bad guy and that he didn't plan to get involved with the Collinses at all, and that
Yeah.
Carolyn
He
had, in fact, brought him there. And
he talks her through the whole thing of how she's the one who came uninvited to see him at the inn, and she's the one who asked him for a ride back. And when he was reluctant to agree, she insisted and then made him come in. So Carolyn admits, like, yeah, the whole thing was my doing. He wasn't trying to come to the house, I made him. Carolyn stays behind in Burke's room as the constable leaves, and she yells at Burke a bit for playing her for a fool. She reveals that she knows about the portrait he's arranged to have Sam paint, and so she knows he's not really leaving town.
balls him out for a little while about that and seems just really like, I trusted you kind of thing, and feels like she shouldn't have.
And he just says that his plans have changed. She doesn't believe him and asks him outright if he tried to kill Roger. He says that he did not, and then she leaves.
Then the phone rings in his room, and it is the mysterious Mr. Bronson calling to say he's in Bangor.
Burke says, hang out, get a room, I'll be there as soon as I can.
Yes, and that is the end of the episode. Dun dun dun.
Episode 25, Victoria Winters, reminds us that Collinwood is tense and creepy, and she's got a spooky letter, boy howdy.
Yep, and that she was distracted with all the drama, but now she's back to wondering about her past, her mysterious past, because of the letter from that orphan marm.
And David is sneaking into Vicky's room to snoop. He begins to read the missive from the orphan marm, and Roger comes in and catches him. He asks David if he had Vicky's permission to read this letter. David says, well, I didn't think she would care.
As Roger is scolding him for reading it, David just fucks off and runs away and is like, I'm getting away from my mean old dad, which is a kind of a tactic his sister uses as well, is likes to leave rooms whenever anything's uncomfortable, and David followed suit.
Roger follows him across the hall to his room and continues yelling at him. David is being a little shit. Roger is being a big shit. They really ought to be friends, as they are similarly awful. They fight about Roger wanting to send him away again, and David is talking about how he must want to send him to jail, and still no one is putting together, oh, maybe he's the one who fucked with the brake.
He has so many opportunities for it to be clear, and it just keeps not being clear to anyone. He does seem concerned that he's gonna be sent to the foundling home because he doesn't understand what a foundling is. And then the phone rings downstairs, and Liz answers it. It's the insurance man, and she will tell Roger that the paperwork is ready.
Vicky comes into the drawing room. She tells Liz that, gee, David has been acting strange since the accident
He's
and
always talking about
seems,
going to jail.
preoccupied that the constable is going to arrest him. And Liz is like, shut up, I don't care about that right now.
Yeah. Just go back to your governor singing.
And
Governor, gov.
Vic, yeah,
I want to try that again. Just go back to your governor,
governance.
your governance. Yeah.
Nannying, just say
Nannying.
nannying.
Well, you can leave some of that in, maybe.
And Victoria initially is trying to be subtle, but does make plain that she is maybe beginning to suspect David a little bit of the tampering.
Yeah.
Then the foundling home letter is mentioned, at which point Liz shoos her out and is not interested in talking about that.
Yes.
So Vicky goes back up to David's room. Would you believe that David is being a little shit?
Not David,
Well,
but
he
the
is.
damned corn.
Vicky starts to sort of slyly accuse him of the break tampering. She brings up his magazines and what sorts of things he's learned from his magazines and say, why are you so concerned about going to jail? And kind of letting on that she knows what's up.
He's being dramatic and sullen, and she's like, well, let's just do some school. And he yells, I had nothing to do with my dad's car. And she's like, wait a minute, I never accused you of that. And I think it is apparent there, but she still is not 100% convinced, but maybe is beginning to finally connect the incredibly obvious dots.
Well, down in the drawing room, Liz and Roger are arguing about the orphan marm letter, and Liz is being cagey and weird about it, and is just generally trying to avoid any further questions about her hiring of Vicky. And then Liz tries to gaslight Roger into believing that someone had recommended Vicky to him, and is basically just like, well, and yeah, then you recommended her, don't you remember? He's like, no, that's not what happened. She insists, no, that's what happened, and that's what you're gonna say happened if you know what's good for you.
Yep. I kind of love that. I like that she's mean to her brother, and I like that she's just like, whatever she's got on him, I'm assuming the Burke business potentially, and many other things, because Roger just seems kind of shady. She's just like, nope, this is what we're doing. I'm the boss.
I was, upon this rewatch, thinking about this during this scene. I wonder if, or if the story might be more interesting if they drew a parallel about how, you know, how Sam is awful now and he's a miserable old pretentious drunk because of whatever happened 10 years ago,
Sure.
but apparently was just the nicest guy in town before that and everybody loved him. It would be interesting if Roger also used to be a good guy. Like,
I
if this
suppose.
had ruined them both.
I think, though, that Roger just seems like he's maybe naturally duplicitous.
Yeah, I think Roger is just a spoiled rich kid and
Yeah.
is bad from birth, but I think it might be more interesting if he was a better dude before.
And I will say that may be why I have some sympathy towards Sam, and that, he was supposedly, a good guy and just a friendly artist raising his daughter, and was widowed, and like, you know, just this artist guy that was living, by the coasts in Maine and living his life, painting his hotel art, and whatever horrible thing he got involved in was so upsetting that he spiraled into depression and then somehow became a pretentious ass as well. But, you know, I do I do kind of still like Sam. I have my moments where I don't, but I do.
We've only got 10 more episodes until Sam number 2 turns up, and I can
I don't like
finally
change.
tell you the thing I've been waiting to tell you
Okay.
for a
Well,
while.
we just gotta hurry up and go get to it.
Oh, it's gonna be good. Well, during this conversation where Liz is telling Roger this is the version of the story that you will tell henceforth, he's kind of like, well, okay, but can you tell me what actually happened or what is going on? And she just insists that it's a private matter. But during this scene, Liz keeps fucking up her lines, which initially I was thinking, get it together, lady, because Joan Bennett, the actress that portrays Liz, is like a big movie star, and she had been working since the silent era
Yeah.
and had starred in many silent films and then further starred in not silent films. And she comes from this big acting dynasty and has history on the stage and also fucks up her lines a lot. And you would think, like, lady, haven't you been doing this for like 50 years? Should
Sure.
be better at it. But in this scene, we see there has been a fly buzzing around her the whole time, which I think accounts for her mistakes. And I think if I were her, I would have been like, listen, I know we're on a schedule, but can we please do that again without this fucking fly in my face?
That does seem to be like, they may be on a schedule, but I think if they are writing it very quickly and being given all of their stuff, just write that time or day or like very having to learn their lines very quickly and then not be able to do any retakes, I could understand how it might be a little daunting, especially now that I'm in the theater.
Okay, Norma Desmond.
I know. Back with the tutoring, Vicky tells David about the settling of
Wait,
May.
wait. I don't think either of us actually said. I said Liz had told Roger that he had to go along with it or else, but the or else is
You can fuck off and leave.
Liz has said, you're either going to go along with my version of events or I'm going to throw you out.
Yeah.
Thus, it is spelled out explicitly, not just a vague threat.
Yeah, she's not vague about it at all. She's like, this is my business. The end. Do as I say.
Anyway, you were saying?
Oh, well, back with the tutoring, Vicky tells David about the settling of Maine, and David is playing nice again with her because I feel like he suspects she's on to him. And because he's smarter than everyone else, he can pick up on cues instead of having to wait episodes to figure something out. Roger comes in to talk about the letter to Vicky, and David asks if Burke has been arrested yet, to which Roger replies that, he's ready for him to be arrested too, kid. Like, let's get him. And Vicky, even though she clearly does suspect David at this point, does not share any of that or give any indication to Roger of that suspicion.
And then they go to talk about the letter, and David creeps out after them. And I initially thought, oh, he's just sneaking out to eavesdrop on whatever conversation they're about to have. But in fact, he creeps out after them and sneaks into Vicky's room to look for the letter again.
Now Vicky and Roger talk, and Roger gives the party line that Liz has requested and then continues on about Burke. And Vicky says she's not buying it. And he says that someone from New York recommended her, not someone from the foundling home, someone who had given anonymous donations to the foundling home. And he says that, well, I can't tell you her name because she's made up.
Well, he's saved by the bell as the constable sheriff telephones, and Roger is pissed when he learns that Burke was only questioned but not arrested. So he storms out to confront the sheriff constable. And then Vicky goes back up to her room to find the letter missing again.
She goes to David's room to give him a taste of his own medicine and rummage around his room looking for the letter he's stolen from her. But then, instead of the letter, she finds the missing car part, the valve, the bleeder valve. Dun, dun, dun. And then she makes some real good bug eyes, and that's the end.
And thus concludes this week. Final thoughts? I'm ready for this storyline to be over with. I think it's boring.
Yes, I'm bored. I mean, I like watching it with you and I enjoy the fun little things, but knowing that there is a lot of wacky tomfoolery coming, I'm eager for that. I do enjoy the more sort of serious suspense, drama aspects of it, but it's just dragging on too much. Like this particular, the tedious conversations that end up sounding like who's on first, like whoop, 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 whoop. Like it just, I'm ready for that to be over. But I am still enjoying a lot of the acting and I'm excited to see what comes.
Yeah, I love the vibes. This storyline, again, maybe just because it's my second time watching it, but I'm just over this bit. I don't remember feeling that way on the first watch. We should mention that we have now entered October in terms of recording. And so, it's the spookiest time of the year.
There's dark shadows.
However, we're a week ahead in recording, so this will not come out until the 13th. So we need to figure out what we're going to do for Halloween because we will be recording our Halloween episode on the 19th and we need to make it special and big.
Feel free to leave comments recommending anything that you might think would be fun for us to do.
Also, social media.
Yes, please like and follow and stuff.
Instagram is Ghosts Want You Dead, and YouTube is Ghosts Want You Dead. I made us a TikTok, but I am middle aged and don't know how to TikTok. So maybe we'll do something with that. But I couldn't get Ghosts Want You Dead on TikTok, so it's GWYD Podcast at TikTok. And maybe eventually I'll post something on there.
We will learn how to use the TikToks.
Okay, goodbye.
Thanks. See ya. Goodbye.